No, I don't have the link for the YouTube
It's right.
piece.
I mean, people have to join, I guess. But let me check my.
That would be great. Or else I'll just go. Maybe Tufan sent it to me in a message before. Oh, here it is. Yeah, I've got the link. I think so. Let's see it.
Okay. Make a picture.
I'm just checking that I'm actually able to. I'm onto the link, but I suppose you'll send it over to me, so I'll be able to.
I think they could see us now. I'm just checking out the screen there as well. Hey people, this is Glenn and I am Rod with Textoni. So we're happy to see you together right now. And I would love to give mention the Glenn. Glenn, the floor is yours.
Here.
Hey people, the floor is yours, Glenn.
Excellent. Well, good morning and good afternoon to everyone here. And it's great to be presenting to you today on this webinar as we look a little bit about legislation, regulatory issues, but also some of the things that are happening in the world of work at the moment. And basically, just to give you a little bit of my background, so I've worked in European institutions, also been looking at policy issues related to the labour market and to digital technology policy for many years at the European level, but also at the national level. And 4 years ago, almost today, I started Trade Europa as a think do tank, as I call it, based around topics of free trade openness and personal choice. And we did quite a few pieces of work looking at the innovation, entrepreneurship and change within certainly the European as well as the global context. And what we did was, on the back of this, we did a lot of work on technology, digitalization, and how this is helping the labour markets of today and also tomorrow as we look into the future as well. And on the back of this, we started something called Freelance Movement, which is, which first of all is called Platform Economy, but given the changes in the labour markets and also the use of technology, we updated the name to Freelance Movement because really what we're trying to sort of talk about now is this issue of different forms of work, the future of work actually facilitated by technology, digital channels and new ways of working so that people can actually have more control, more flexibility and more decision about when, where and how they decide to work and how they decide to earn money in different ways. So we're really moving away from the traditional 9 to 5, 5 days a week monopoly contract that you sign with an employer to something a little bit more flexible. In a lot of cases, something a little bit more open, which gives the individual as well as the company and the organization more choice and flexibility, which meets the needs of ever-changing and evolving workforce. So for Freelance Movement now, we have almost 50 members, really from the full range of future of work, technology and innovation sectors. So we have ride-hailing and quick commerce, all the way through to insurance, financial services, building sector, to other kinds of freelancers, artists, models, musicians who want to use platforms to be able to work when, where, and how they wish. So this is the kind of the starting point for what we're doing. And the organisation itself has three main strands to activity. The first one being education on what's actually happening, explaining to society, whether it's the media, politicians, decision makers and public organisations about the future of work, giving statistics, giving facts, figures and data on what's happening. And the second part is looking at policy and legislation. So helping the decision makers and opinion formers to sort of come to specific views. And this means working through workshops, putting forward different amendments and proposals on policy texts, and also looking at where the business is heading and providing input on that. So that's an important part of the activity. And the third part is business creation as well. So given that we've created this ecosystem of companies and organizations all complementary within the future of work, what we actually do is give companies and organizations the opportunity to find out more about each other, and what we see is more companies buying services and products off each other within that space. So it's an important element of business development and revenue creation within the body. So that's sort of the background to Trade Europa, and also the freelance movement we started over 2.5 years ago. And on the back of that, there's a lot of things happening on the policy and regulatory side of things, particularly at the moment, given that we have such huge growth in freelancing and platform work. Even the conservative figures show that this is huge growth year on year, 30-40%. Even as we go through sort of an economic downturn at the moment, this is something that's being seen as even more of a push towards the digital economy, people finding different ways of working to earn money. So this is something that's very good, very effective, and certainly something that is being pushed at the present stage of time. And what we see in terms of the legislative and policy framework, this is something that's being sort of rolled out to accommodate platform, gig, and project work more and more. So we've seen previously the Digital Markets Act and Digital Services Act has actually brought in to the fold digital channels and platform work, and very particularly starting in 2023, we've got the new DAX 7. This is the way in which tax authorities share data and tax information amongst each other. This has been decided in Brussels. Now it needs to be rolled out in the European member states. And what we see is that the need for platforms to be brought in for the first time and ways of actually sort of sharing data, sharing the information that they have, but also making it available easy and simply to tax authorities and relevant collection bodies to make sure that this is done in an easy and simple way, because platforms are actually collecting all this data already. What we need to do is be able to put it down the pipe in an API format which is user-friendly for both the tax authorities, but also simple for companies, platforms, and organizations as well to be able to bring them in. And also at the moment we've got ongoing is the Platform or Worker Rights Directive. So this is looking at starting point of ensuring fair and good conditions for workers within the platform space. So even if they decide to work on a more freelance project basis, they shouldn't be second-class citizens against their full-time contract working colleagues. And this was something that started out with criteria which needed to be met for implementing a presumption of employment. This has now sort of changed, because last week we had the European Parliament in their Employment and Social Affairs Committee voted on the text for this Platform Worker Rights Directive. It's actually gone more down the route of presumption of employment, saying that people are employed in a traditional way unless they choose otherwise. And I think that the balance needs to be struck here as well. I think the European Council, which is made up with the European member states, ministers and members of the government, they have a different approach. They want to sort of see the innovation. They want to allow the new products and services to come through, which technology and digitalization can allow. And one of the problems that we see here is too much of an old mindset. There's a very good series it's run by a colleague called the working place of the past can't be put into the containers of the future. And I think this is the way we should view this, that the traditional 9-to-5 mindset, the traditional structures of what is a job, what is going to work and earn money has changed vastly. And the decision makers and opinion formers need to be able to catch up to the reality of where we are today. So we're working in the working group, putting forward our amendments and views as to where this should be going. And I think this is an important point as we look to the future of how the internet and digital channels can be used, because these are things that are crucial to the world of work, that for finding employment and for employers as well, who see more efficiencies, bringing in the talent, skills and knowledge that they need at specific times, and having the sort of flexibility to be able to do that. And this is something that matches with the workers of today. They have this mindset that they want to work in different ways, more choice, more flexibility, and hence the growth that we're seeing at the moment and allowing the new platforms to do this. Some of the European labour markets are very strict, very strong trade unions, very strong organised labour organisations, and their starting point is to have members and earn money. It's not really the starting point to look at innovation and new ways of doing things. It's just to protect what they've got, how they do things. So it's kind of an old-fashioned way of looking at labour markets and jobs in the world of work. So this is something that we sort of try and educate, that there is a parallel path. We don't need to follow the channels of the past to be able to find a working environment and also a policy framework which meets the needs of the labour market of today, which is constantly changing, constantly evolving, and always looking for different ways of doing things. I think these new models and the huge growth that we're seeing as well is something that we need to look towards and maintain within this framework. And I think that sort of the European context anywhere is somewhere that we can use as a great starting point, because people are looking at new ways of working. We're also meeting sustainability and environmental needs as well by avoiding having everyone rushing into city centres at the same time and then out again, causing pollution, causing delays and blockages by cars, buses, trains, public transport as well, which can be stifled by this. So have more of a staggered approach, and also allow people to live in different places. It doesn't need to be big cities. You can live at the countryside, and as long as you have a fast broadband connection, a computer and a mobile phone, you can actually work, earn money, and be able to do things. This whole idea of knowledge work and the human cloud is something that is evolving and I think developing in a very positive way as we move forward, and something that we should harness the power of this. Because once we had the COVID-19 pandemic, which saw societies locked down, and for businesses and companies to be able to operate, there was a need to use technology. This has become vital for the ability to continue. So remote work, working outside an office, working in isolation, but using the tools and technology that exists. People have got a taste for that, and we see now that the general workforce doesn't want to go back to the office. If it does, then maybe it's sort of 2 or 3 days a week maximum. It certainly doesn't want to go back to the traditional way of doing things pre-pandemic, even though there are some slightly less, shall we say, less evolved companies and leaderships who think that the only way that they can get people working is to have them in a physical place, have them working 9 to 5 so they can actually view them in position. This is a very old-fashioned way of doing things, and something that will be worker-led, that the demand for the best talent and the best expertise won't accept that. And even though we're going through an economic downturn in most of Europe and Asia, the reality is that there's still huge demand for skills on the marketplace. There's a shortage of top talent. There's a shortage, whether it's in the technology sector, healthcare, across the board, and a real number of sectors we're seeing as a shortage of the expertise and talent that's needed. And to attract those people into projects and work in a traditional kind of way is going to require that employers actually give this flexible work approach, and maybe evolve in terms of their thinking to be able to harness the best talent. And this is certainly what our data is suggesting. We put together the Voice of Freelancers Future Work Study 2022, which we launched in November. And we saw some very specific data that was coming out there in terms of the individuals themselves, a lot older than we would expect. It wasn't just millennials and Gen Z who wanted to work in this way and have more flexibility, more choice, and more project work. We also saw that people increasingly earning more money via the human cloud and through sort of digital channels, something that wasn't there beforehand. And the fact that people were very much sort of self-starters, finding out themselves about what they wanted to do, solving problems themselves, not needing employers, federations or trade unions to look after themselves. This mindset of working very agile in an agile way, working quickly and solving things out as and when it was necessary. So this on the hoof mentality was something that was ingrained in this new flexible freelance workforce. We also see that the gig economy and project economy doesn't mean it's working less. Often it's on the contrary, it's working more hours, but doing something that you actually have passion for, something you enjoy, and something that really gives you much more fulfillment, as well as adding value to companies and organizations. So this is a new trend that I think is important to be able to highlight for decision makers. And really the number of platforms that are being used is increasing. In the same way that when we look for a flight or hotel accommodation, we'll use one of the aggregators. We're also seeing this kind of mentality, this kind of service like the app jobs of this world, who are actually offering a sort of an aggregator function, so you can find the project and the activity you want via these kind of sites and not have to go through every single platform in turn. And I think this idea of the need for companies and organizations, big and small, to have a kind of a freelancer or an open talent approach. They need to have a strategy to how to be able to have perhaps a key workforce, but much smaller than the traditional thinking, but a way in which we could actually bring in the open talent that's required through this strategy. So bring in freelancers, whether it's in the technology, whether it's in the HR, marketing, all these kind of functions can be brought in. And I think so increasingly companies and individuals are more used to bringing in products and services on demand. This kind of, whether it's software, marketing as a service, is something that's becoming more and more popular because of the efficiency gains. It's better results. Sometimes it's lower price. So it's the companies that win as well as the freelancers and the individuals. And I think that in terms of the next generation of companies, organizations, and economic growth, being able to tap into this freelancer strategy, being able to make it work properly is something that's crucial. But at the same time, we're going to need the law and the framework to actually sort of catch up in terms of giving a safety net to those people that need it, but also the services around it, whether it's banking, insurance. This is also something that needs to adapt to the new worker mentality. So if you want to sort of have a loan, buy an apartment, buy a vehicle or something like that, the fact that you need to the banks and financial institutions need to understand the role of freelancing, how freelancing actually works, and not just look at it from through the filter of a traditional 9-to-5 open-ended contract arrangement. So I think this is one of the developments. It's a learning process for everyone within that, but to ensure that freelancing and gig work is seen as a full-time opportunity, part-time opportunity for others, but it's something that's valid, and the individuals who choose this flexible approach aren't treated as second-class citizens. They have social security, they can pay their taxes, but they have the same protection and approach to elements as anyone else within the traditional economy. And I think that the world will continue to blur as we go into 2023, but I think it's important that decision makers and opinion formers have this view of where the world of work is going, and the future of work can be incorporated into the policy, into the regulation, and the laws that we're seeing in Europe and beyond, into a proper future of work that meets the needs of organizations, the economy, and also workers as a whole. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Excellent. Yeah.
As you know, Turkey has a great number of, we could say, youngsters,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they are actually open to learning everything from software to arts and the culinary arts as well. So for the Textoni as well, it's an ad, maybe we could say. We are going to be we can be talking about the growth of freelancers in Turkey, and we can be talking about
Yes.
the situation of it. And of course, I believe in the people, Gen Z, I am one of them, going to be changing
Yeah.
the issues regarding that. And I was going to ask, but you have partly given the answer to it. I was going to say that, as you have mentioned, the taxes in Europe in general, they could be problematic. For me, it's problematic because I really don't know how to regulate my taxes, how to pay, and I could be
Yes.
I could be charged with tax evasion because I don't know. And so
Mm.
for the 2023 and the future generation, it'll be probably one of the best implementations to take, right? As you have mentioned.
Exactly. I think the tax is a big problem at the moment. And of course, say if you're doing some work, several employers, how do you actually sort of register that? If you're using several platforms as well, to make sure that they actually sort of take care of the compliance issues, and of course the social security, the taxes are an important part of that as well. And there's certain companies and organisations that do this. But this should be something that the tax authority should look towards, because in their interest to bring in the revenue and bring in the money that's required. And I think the understanding that people will have different revenue streams is not all just taken by one employer in the traditional sense, but also the fact that this is there'll be several streams of money coming in, but people want to be able to declare this. They want to do it properly. So to make this as simple and as straightforward as possible in terms of tax declarations, this could be either done through the sort of the banking sector. We see in Estonia that, for example, that you have like a bank account. You can do gig work for various employers. The bank actually takes care of that through the account, that the taxes and all the various impositions are actually sort of paid, and the money that you get out of that is the money that you have in your pocket and you can spend. And I think that as we increase towards more digitalization, I think we'll go more down this route as well, in terms of being able to allow people to keep track on their spending, who they're actually working for, but make sure that there's an easy way to be able to report this to the tax authorities. And I think that the principle still applies, that where you live the most of your time, where you have the most of your engagements, that's where you should pay tax. So even if you're working for a Danish company, Portuguese company, and you're doing projects for them, that's fine. But where you're actually based, that should be the main area that you're paying tax. And that's why the new tax rules will actually cover this for the first time, to make sure that you don't deliberately or unintentionally do tax evasion, as you say, but want to stay on the right side of the law, but also to pay the contributions that are necessary. But of course, not pay beyond that as well. It shouldn't be a hinder that because you choose to work in an open or a freelance way, that you have more complications, you have more administration, or even higher taxes. That would be very negative for all people involved.
True, and as you have said, in some countries, the freelancer movement has not been recognized. I mean, it's legally recognized, but the governmental banks usually cannot cover the situation. And what are your thoughts on that? I would love to hear about it.
Yeah, and also that some financial institutions, a lot of banks, they don't want this kind of work. They don't want people with a freelance or a flexible lifestyle. They want people that as soon as they're open their bank account, they can show them their employment contract, they show how much is coming in, they want to sell them new products and services for as much as possible. But with people who have maybe sort of a spike of income here, then it'll be down flat for a couple of months, then another spike. They so far are not really interested in that. They don't like the unpredictable nature of it, but this has to change. If not, we're seeing here in Europe that we're working with a number of organizations who are actually offering financial services and banking services to freelancers, which are actually tailored towards them and their needs. And I think this is a really interesting development. And I think the big financial institutions, whether it's banks, whether it's insurance providers, they will also have to develop and adapt to the new reality more than anything else. There's no way that once this becomes goes from sort of 5 to 10 to 20% of the population who are doing side gigs, side hustles, and various ways of working, they won't be able to ignore this because they will need the revenue and they'll have to change their models to be able to adapt to it. But as we know, banking and financial services is probably one of the most conservative sectors along with the employment market. So I think they'll probably sort of follow quite slowly. But I think that opens up opportunities for new players within the market to offer products and services that are more tailored towards the new lifestyle, Gen Z, millennial mentality, and they will take market share. So I think it's really a case of big banks, they need to adapt or they'll die.
True. And as you have mentioned earlier, I mean, the freelancing companies have started to rise in Turkey as well. We are one of the pioneers as Textoni. We are one of the pioneers of the freelancing platforms. And I mean, I believe that with freelancing, there could be a great future. And as you have mentioned, because there are lots of opportunities that they can offer. I mean, some people who are retired as well, they write about them, they write about law, military history and politics. I really love reading about them. And I write for fun, but when it turns out I can gain money, why not? And I mean, I was in Portugal last year, and I really enjoyed the freelancing ecosystem there because lots of my student friends, they were at the same time freelancers, and I really enjoyed how they talk about their own culture. And Textoni does it too with the over 30,000 authors as well. We have lots of things that we can cover, and we enjoy it because we are not just giving some information from a different kind of country to a different kind of country. In the near future, we're going to see some maybe transnationalist movement as well with the freelancers. And
I think so too, and we're also seeing this competition between countries to offer kind of digital nomad possibilities. So individuals who can work from anywhere, to attract them in. We've seen everywhere from Greece, Croatia to Barbados, going further afield, Mexico, to actually make it easier for you to sort of live and work and earn money in a different location. And almost this competition between countries to attract this increasing number of freelancers and digital nomads. So that's, I think, an interesting trend we're seeing. And I think in the Turkish example, as you say, we've got a large young population and can actually sort of is digital savvy, can actually be using the digital means and the digital platforms to actually fill that shortage on the employment market space physically, but also through the human cloud to use the channels that are available to carry out work, whether it's content writing, as you talked about yourself, or various other needs for translation, web design, programming. This could also be done remotely and actually sort of using the channels to be able to deliver this to companies and organizations in the broader European space, North America and beyond. And I think this is a really exciting time that there's more opportunities than ever before. And I think also on the Turkish national marketplace as well, there is it's a big economy. There's also a lot of migrant workers as well coming in from sort of the Middle East, people displaced. This is also a way for them to be able to pick up an app and be able to start earning money instantly, and a way into the society, a way into sort of the labor market locally as well. So I think there's this two-level game that we should see in terms of digitalization and how the future of work is opening up opportunities to individuals to be able to earn money, and create a way to get into society.
That's true, and I could talk about only the employer and the employee side as well, because I mean I'm an employee, so I have seen lots
Yeah.
of employers talk about the hybrid style, not very conservative for them, not very okay
Yes.
for them, but it's started to change after the pandemic, and I
Yeah.
believe it's played a huge role in redefining the formal work ethics, formal work, and so how are
Yeah.
the employers in Europe, best in most of the case, seeing freelancing movement? I mean, you have partly answered in a brief way, but I would love you to give it up one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think there is a sort of the employment space is an interesting one. I think there's still a little bit of reluctance. I think that the C-suite, from the CFO to the CEO, they understand this is happening. They want to do it. I think we see legal departments and personnel, HR departments being a little bit slower on this, being a little bit worried because they see that there's the angle of compliance. Should we do this the right way? We've always done things in a very different way. We use employment. If we want someone, we use like an interim or a traditional recruitment firm to be able to give us the skills that we need. But I think that there's development over time, and I think once the HR departments are on board as well, they're convinced of how this can work. We're going to see more and more changes, and it's interesting. We see big companies in the technology sector and the pharmaceutical sector who actually have these internal freelance and project worker strategy, bringing in the people they need at specific times, and it works very well. And we see sort of the efficiencies they've gained through that. And I think this is a model that's going to spread more quickly over time, and we'll see more and more changes within the sort of the structure of organisations in a European context.
True, and as you have mentioned, with the HR departments of the bureaus or the job rates, I mean, I am trying hard to break the HR. I could say that it's outsource is better for you. It's easier, cheaper, and everything that we can offer. And I'm a Gen Z, so I could probably say this in a very usual way, but in some cases, people do not like to be their parents. Their parents work from 9 to 5, and they could take a day off or 2 days off in a week, and so it's not very okay for them, and they don't want to be raised like you're going to be the same, and maybe they are trying to break it. But as you have mentioned, the CFOs actually, they are nicer. In my experience, they always say, "Let's have a meeting and let's have a conversation. Let's have a brief representation of what we do as Textoni." But sometimes the HR department is like, I mean, we don't want to outsource this. We just want to do it this in-house, and they're just like looking at me like this. We don't want you. I mean, they're playing a bit knobby in a way. So I believe it's going to change in probably in 5 to 10 years time. I mean, maybe less than that, because the generation now is leading the other network, and the other work.
Yes.
So we are going to be seeing a great change in 2 years' time as well. And I really enjoyed how you pioneer in that sense as well. Because people I'm sorry to interrupt, but people of my age do not really know what to do with their future. They don't have plans. They want to have multiple plans. And freelancing, in a way, gives them another option. And they could be saying, I could travel at the same time and work. I could go camping at the same time and work. And I really enjoy how it's taking a shape. And that's
I think this is it. This is the opportunities that are there. And, you know, you can do that. You can work from anywhere from a lot of roles and responsibilities. You can actually add value. And I think we're seeing the bigger change within the labour market is this idea about sort of presenteeism and actually sort of working a number of hours to actually, what can you deliver? What can the value you can add in a specific period of time? And I think that roles based on value as opposed to job descriptions is the way we're heading more generally. And I think that this is going to be something that's positive as we see more sort of efficiencies. It's also good for companies and organizations. Traditional organizations have like 6 monthly or annual performance reviews. So you have to take in all the things that are done in 6 months, 12 months. Everyone's forgotten, and try and work through and do some performance review on that. Absolutely nonsense. It's so outdated and so useless in terms of really giving proper feedback. What we're seeing more is this speeded up feedback loops, so that you do a project with a beginning, middle, and an end. You set the rules of the engagement. What is the purpose? What will you actually deliver? And then very quickly you can measure, what have you done? This was the project. This is what you did. Have you met the goals? Has something not been met? What's the reason for that? So not only does the organization have a very sort of clear way of evaluating what's been done, the individual themselves can say, this has been a good job. You learn by things that haven't gone wrong as well. So your ability to actually sort of grow in terms of your career, your profile, and your expertise is much speeded up. So this is something I think that's incredibly positive for the individual as well as for the organization about how these things work.
True. And I was kind of wondering, from 2018, you have been attending several seminars as well with the
yes,
webinars too. I mean, I have seen a great change in 3 years' time. And I would love to hear it from you, because you have experienced it on the first hand. I just watched it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it is a big change. And we're seeing that people really understand this. It's no longer something that's like something in the shadows, something a little bit strange. This is more sort of normal. I wouldn't say it's mainstream yet, and I think there's always going to be a place for traditional employment. And there's also certain sectors which maybe aren't as open to disruption in the same way. But I think that really the majority of professions and sectors can be disrupted, and then we'll take a more of an open strategy, an open talent approach, looking for expertise, knowledge, and individuals themselves have a value and a currency that they can sell, which is their own abilities, and that shouldn't be limited to just one employer at a time. It can be much more open. It can be sort of several things. If people have a passion about this, then I think it's very valid. And we're seeing increasingly as well individuals, particularly Gen Z and millennials, but also older people who want to make a job and want to make a company out of their passion. And I think the ability to be able to do that, people understanding, how do I market? How do I build a company? How do I find partnerships and network? How do I actually do my taxes, do my administration? These sort of nuts and bolts, basic building block steps to building a company is something that's really important for people who want to do that out of their passion or work as a freelancer. So yeah, I think the future is very bright. I think it's going to be more interesting for organizations, and it's definitely going to be more interesting for society and individuals who have a much more varied, much more rich way of doing things. We've seen recent data from polls in a European context, and it shows that over 60% of people are either unengaged or even hate their job at the moment. You know, they get this anxiety on a Sunday afternoon that they're going to have to go to work for 5 days, starting Monday. This is completely wrong. You can't have a motivated workforce who hate what they're doing. But by giving more flexibility and more openness, you actually get people who want to deliver. They're doing something they enjoy, and also more opportunities to be able to develop and go forward as well.
Or maybe they could just try to engage, but I don't know if it works out.
I think this is the problem. We'll talk about this quiet quitting element, but I think it's the fact that so people just working to rule, not really going above and beyond what they're interested in. Then of course, I think you can call it what you want, but if people aren't fully engaged, you're not going to get the best out of them. So you have to find a way to be able to do that. I think there is a starting point as well that if you engage in anything, you give more effort, you get more out of it. So that's a personal starting point as well within this process.
True. And I really enjoyed how the freelancing movement does not have any age or any restriction, because, you know...
Definitely not. And also on the podcast, the New Gig podcast that we have as well, we get old and young, we get people from the public sector to the private sector, we get people who are starting their own business, working for an organization or a platform, or finding new ways of doing it. I think it's important that we hear all sides of the future of work as well. There's different people who are into this, but also they've got different things that they're getting out of it as well. And the reality is, and we've seen this from our study that we did, that people are happier overall if they go down this route and choose more freelancing and more flexible opportunities to work.
Okay. So people have started asking questions. If that's all right with you, I'll be continuing.
Please, yeah, go ahead.
So, on the first hand, Sunshine Spitzer asked, is there an app on every platform, for example, in which social networking areas? I mean, in every platform, please.
Yeah, in terms of looking at the platforms to find work, I think there's the new aggregator sites that are coming through, like App Jobs, I think is really interesting. So you don't have to sign up for Fiverr, Upwork, all these kind of things. You can actually go through one aggregator, but also you can find out what's the kind of work that you're looking at. And there's a broad range of apps and platforms which will allow you to do that. And I think they're getting easier to use and more simple. So you can really go in on the morning and say, right, I want to work 2 or 3 hours this afternoon. And you can actually go on and be able to do that. And it's booked. They take care of the payments and also the taxation elements as well. So that's really exciting. So I think that this is going to become simpler and better, and more of these kind of platforms in the future as well.
And that makes up a larger amount of clients for us too. I mean, fintech societies and other services have begun, and I really enjoyed listening to their experience as well. And can I continue with the other one, by the way?
Yeah, please go ahead.
All right. So Pinar asked, since 2018, you have been participating in the movement about freelancing, and one can even say you started it. And Pinar asked my question. So what has changed since 2018? Where was it in 2018? Where is it now? And we have just mentioned about it. But it's great that you have experienced it in the first, and I really enjoyed how I've been checking out. I've been stalking you, by the way, and I really love.
Okay, that's good.
I really love
it's good.
How it been actually. So may I continue with the other question?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Hi Glenn, what do you think about the future of freelancing?
I think the freelancing is the future is very, very bright indeed. I think the ability to earn as much money, if not more, than having a regular job is there. And I think it's traditionally been seen as something for sort of extrovert people who have a character who are always networking and out there. But I think there's also an opportunity for people who are more introverted, who want to do more research work. They want to do sort of programming, or sort of they want to be in a place by themselves and work. I think the more and more opportunities through platforms and portals to actually find projects, find activities which pay good money. And I think that the development is just, we're just really getting started. We're really, it's kind of we're kind of the launch of the iPhone moment. And very quickly we'll get to an iPhone 14 and the services and the apps around it. So I think this whole ecosystem, one thing is freelancing, but I think the whole ecosystem around digital payments, acceptance of the companies and organizations, the social security, the taxation, everything will evolve around this. And I think that we're really at a tipping point now. I think we're almost approaching that. And I think once we get there, things will go very, very quickly. So we won't be talking about 10 years. We'll be talking about sort of 3 to 5 when this will be commonplace for an increasing percentage of the population.
True. And Duyga asked great questions. What can be done to change the real surroundings freelancing? And
I think there's a lot of marketing needs to be done by the platforms. People like myself, but also freelancers should be telling their story, whether it's over sort of Instagram, Snapchat, or TikTok, be able to share their experiences and share their knowledge, because I think that everything's always strange until you do it. And I think to find the groups of people and follow individuals and thought leaders who are actually doing this, who are sharing some of their experiences, both good and bad, and how to get around them, I think is really, really important. And I think that also us as groups need to be able to be cheerleaders for what's actually happening and actually set the narrative, because in a lot of places, the narrative around freelancing is about the negative side and people on low salaries and limited conditions. That's even worse in the traditional economy. So I think that we should be looking at the sort of the low skills and protecting them, absolutely, but also looking at the high skilled and the people who are actually sort of earning more money, having more opportunities, what this actually means and how you can actually take this forward. I think it's going to be good to shine a light on the positive and the negative, and basically just like tell us stories and learn by doing and share the experiences. I think this is going to be great, because there's no point just sort of having some academics saying this is what the future of work's going to look like. They can give their viewpoints, but if they've never had a proper job in their lives, they're not very relevant. You need to actually, the people who are actually doing this and living this from a platform side, but also from a freelancer perspective as well.
True. And I'm just going to copy paste your answer to what is Textoni's future goal. I mean, I have picked up the role of the account development specialist because we are the pioneers here. We offer them solutions that is not very traditional, and I really enjoy the change of people's minds. And Textoni and you, Glenn, by the way, I mean, I think we share a lot in common, as both the characteristic and the as both the characteristic and the view on the future of freelancing. I mean, we have begun this journey. 10 to 12 years ago, and it's taken a great shape with the bird view. Of course, some problems may have occurred with the pandemics, the war on Ukraine, and the everything. But we have seen how World Wide Web is now changing into a better thing.
Yeah.
It's now changing into a
Definitely
more tremendous thing. And I'm a Gen Z. I was born into a house with a computer. I could not be very far away from it. And I believe in the future that we share with you and Textoni is a very great one. And I really like to thank you for the meeting, for the questions, for everything, for your presence here, because I really enjoyed every part of the word you said about the future here. And I really enjoyed listening to you. I could be listening to you at least for a day, because I really I like this.
You get bored with me, I promise.
No. I like this because I like hearing the experience talk, and it's going to be a lot more than that in the future time. Thank you again.
Excellent. Pleasure.
And the audience, thank you people for asking questions, for being here, for listening to us. Two men talking about some boring stuff. Maybe, I don't know. We can be boring as we want, right, Glenn?
Hopefully not too boring, but yeah, let us know.
I am boring, I'm sorry. It's okay. So thank you people again, and thank you, Glenn, for being here. I mean,
thank you.
It's been a great, just awesome an hour now, and I would like to keep this on. I would love to hear you. I mean, we can do this, reschedule it maybe. I really love the experience talk here, and so we are young and we can be taking all the experience that we can have. Thank you.
Absolutely, always good to have.
All right, so that is kind of it. Have a lovely, great, joyful day, guys. And Glenn, any last words that you would like to add, maybe?
No, just to say that keep following what we're doing in terms of freelance movement and also free Trade Europa. We've got an interesting study coming out that will be starting next year, which will be looking at benchmarking on the future of work. So looking at different countries, what they've got in place in terms of infrastructure, policy, rules, traditions, they'll actually facilitate freelancing, and we'll be giving a bit of a score in there, so comparing and contrasting where he's good, where he's less good, where he needs to improve. So look out for that in terms of a bit of an analysis, and we'll be doing some specific activities around that too, as well as talking about sort of the tax and the legislative part on freelancing and workers' rights as well. So please follow what we're doing, Twitter, also on the website and on LinkedIn as well. So I'd be happy to engage with you as well.
Yes, follow Glenn. I've been following you, and it's great. It's great. I've just been checking you out. Yeah. Have a lovely day. Take care.
Thank you.